Hey everyone, and welcome back to Eternal Present YouTube channel. I'm here with Melinda Molnar. My name is Sanni Päkkönen, and this recording and this talk will be almost like a part two. I want to call it part two for the previous one, which was clearing confusion around free will and God's will, and how this free will, individual will, and the divine will are dancing together, and how what's the hierarchy there that needs to be in place. I want to say hierarchy because it really is understanding where our true source is, where our true parent is, where the God source is, where the free will needs to be tapped into so that the free will becomes truly empowered and actually a co-creator and actually useful and beneficial part of the eternal plan, the mysterious plan of creation and serving the eternal purpose. So we are going to go, that was a kind of a shorter video. So we're going to go deeper today. And something that both Melinda and I, when we hopped in this call, and I was asking like, well, what are you, do you have anything in your heart to speak of? And she said, rebirth, like how we really are required right now to be born again in such a deep way. And what really happens when that the free will is completely surrendering and coming into alignment with the will of God, with divine will, is where the rebirth happens, because the separate self is dying. So to say, it's like some people call this ego death, but I don't like to really speak it that way, because ego is actually beneficial when it is serving the eternal will. So it's more like homecoming, a dying of the old ways, moving from the realm of the dead into the realm of the living, and really coming back home to truth. And it is like the other name for God's will is truth, right? And this is when I speak of Christ, this is what I speak of. Okay, so I don't operate in the like the man-made Christian dogma, but the truth is another name for Christ. So I just wanted to like really, because I will be bringing that up again and again. So what it really means to become Christed individual, like which is like becoming like Christ, become activated as a Christ, is to align that free will with that divine will, with the truth, and then we become that embodiment of truth. The truth will start pouring into our being, and then we start taking the frequency, the intelligence of the truth here on earth. We've gotten out of the way and we're in service, and that's where the true fulfillment exists. In that space, because we really get to fulfill our assignment, our spirit assignment and spirit mission on earth. And now taking it deeper, the deeper level is how fast we are moving right now. And so many people has been working with me recently, and they've discovered the same thing. It's like God's mind is moving so fast. Are you still with me? Are you still with me? Are you still with me? Or are you with truth 100%, or are you with truth only when you feel like that, right? And then when the truth is moving to the next place, but your mind cannot understand, are you following? Or do you put brakes down, like, wait, like, actually, I want to do it my way, right? So right now we're in this incredible time of moving fast as a human collective, moving fast. And then this is a time for us to check in whether we are with truth all the time, or whether we are only occasionally when it fits in our own plan, our personal plan, so to say. So yeah, we're going to go a lot deeper from here today, but I want to give some space for Melinda as well to hop into this conversation.
Yes, hello. Thank you. And that was, again, beautifully and said a lot of things in there. And I already had one question that I jotted down come up as to when you're thinking that you're hearing the truth, and when you're, again, thinking you're hearing the truth, but the two don't match, right? As that we are in a time when that is very important to refine that alignment under that God's will, and the voice or the communication or the guidance that comes. Because you're right, it will not wait. You take one step, next step, and you don't have to know any of it. That's the beautiful part. You simply just align. So my question is, how would one know whether they are aligned under God's will? What kind of confirmation can they look for or expect or go towards to refine themselves in that space?
Yes, that's a really beautiful question. And it really is. I was giving this insight or request to that a little bit on the end of the last one, of like really becoming curious of how do you know that you're hearing from God, right? Because that's essentially behind your question, is like, well, how do you know that you are perceiving truth? Right? How do you know that you're perceiving truth? And this is like, truth is already clear. It's just that the perception can get cloudy. And this is something that we all have a very unique way of being in touch with divine, because thinking about your spirit is, your blueprint is like a fingerprint or a human eye that is completely unique, is that there is really nobody else who's exactly communicating the same way with God or with divine, right? So that's why we can create these atmospheres that help us to be active. We can activate that in the system to become closer to divine, because if we can't perceive the truth, we're far away from truth, right? So we need to be closer. We need to be closer to truth. So we can create these spaces of helping to activate and create those atmospheres, but essentially it has to be our own revelation, right? That nobody can just say like, oh, this is the way and this is the same way for everybody. This is how it works, right? Because obviously there's been a lot of healing and practices and teachings that have done just that. But where are we today, right? So it's not really a solution. So it is when we personally become more intimate with divine, is where we begin to perceive the truth and God's will and God's voice, so to say, that guidance from in the great I am, in much more clear way. And when that is clear, you can't miss it, really, because it's so incredibly just there. And there is no gap between you and God's mind in that space, because they become one and the same, and then you are that extension of it. So there is no just a simple answer to that question, but that is the question in like thousands and hundreds of thousands of people's mind right now. So thank you for asking it. And I really want to give this a deeper piece to it, like, so how I have moved with it is that I've had wonderful, incredible teachers, and who's each helped me to receive keys to get closer to the living light. And it's in my prayer every day. It is where I put all in every day. I want to know living light more intimately. And this prayer, knowing God more intimately, came from Prophet Lovi. I consider as my spiritual father, and it's such a powerful prayer because immediately it started to work when I started to meditate with that. So that God became so intimate in my heart that it's almost like difficult for me to miss when God is speaking. And that was my whole goal of the prayer, is that I don't want to miss anything. I don't want to miss anything when truth is present here. And so for me, it's many things, but one of the sensations that I have, again, this is not coming from the superficial feeling body, which is vulnerable. We've spoken about this before, but this deeper feeling, I have this like I perceive through frequency. So I sense this very specific frequency behind my spine and all over my back. And if I don't feel it, so say before this meditation or talks, even if I don't feel it, I'm not going to talk, right? I'm not going to talk. And I know this, if I say something, if I say something that is actually not 100% in the truth, that feeling changes. And I get another kind of sensation in my system when I know this, like, oh, like, okay, that wasn't truthful. Let me try that again. Let me clarify what that was about, right? And so that's one example of how we can be in touch with living light and God. But everybody would have, again, some people are really audible. Some people have, which essentially the human potential is to have all senses awakened, that we can hear, we can feel in the spirit, we can taste, we can smell, and we can see God all the time, right? So that's like the full potential of our human capacity. And we are still in this time where a lot of us are kind of entering into one of them first, and then those psychic abilities are really opening up from that space more. Yeah.
Thank you. I wanted to, and which you did too, bring in the attention of the embodiment, right? Because it is your body that's in the right now, and it's the best communication device that we have, that we live in, that we express through and receive the expressions and the messages. And me too, I connected to a sensory. For me, when it comes, it is a certain feeling. And it's the practice of checking in multiple times a day, checking in on what's yes, what's no. So you learn your body's language. You're actually not how your spirit talks through what's a yes, what's a no, and really knowing, and then becoming it. It really forms this beautiful connection of, okay, now I know all of me are on this. And I do notice a lot of people doing different practices that they go into the mind when they want to hear things. So for those folks or those who are like, I'm not connected to my body, and we may have touched on this before, but each time we're coming from a different platform, different depth. How would you connect, or what would be a way for those people who still rely on the mind to tell them to be able to open, to receive in a different form that is more, I want to say more truthful, because your body doesn't necessarily hold as much, conditionings that your mind would.
Right. Yeah. So that's a really wonderful question. And actually with that, really emphasizing, because I don't remember if I have spoken about this superficial feeling here. I kind of get mixed of which containers I spoke about it. So I'm just going to refer back to it. So that, like, being connected to body, it's really important to realize that many people get connected to the superficial feeling of the body first, which there's a few different forms of that, which is emotional, like a superficial feeling. It could be like these emotional layers that are actually very vulnerable. They are vulnerable for manipulation, right? They are vulnerable for manipulation. And it's like usually when we feel the most vulnerable, we are in emotional distress, right? So there's this vulnerability around in that emotional layer. So that's not what we are referring here to, right? And the same thing with the thoughts. Like there's this mental superficial layer, which is, say, this internal voice that is coming from a space of self-doubt or insecurity. There is like certain, say, manipulation forces that are actually hijacking through that superficial mind, because it's like wearing it on the outside of your spirit body. So it's like the first one that these forces or manipulation would hit, right, when it enters to you, and then it's like happening in the inside. It's happening in our system. It could also be trauma related. Many people carry trauma in their bodies. Almost everyone, some kind of trauma, even like birth trauma, coming into this world, and all kinds of trauma, right? So the deeper, say, the primordial, not primordial, that's not the word, primal, that's the word, primal feeling in the gut can also be deceptive, right? So there's all those different layers of the superficial feeling. And oftentimes when people start to first connect to their bodies, they're connecting through those, because it is the way, it is kind of, okay, we're peeling the layers to go deeper and deeper. So what we're really bringing forth here is to go to that deeper feeling. I call it the spirit feeling. So deepening from those layers into this inner knowing. It's more like inner knowing within. Right? So even if your body would be resisting, or your mind or emotions would be resisting something, but you know the truth on the inside, you're still going to follow the truth, right? If you're over here, you're going to follow the resistance. and you keep being in the same old loop all over again. You're never going to go anywhere, honestly. So that's why it's really important to dive deeper, which is this, like when we expand and ascend, we need to also descend and go deeper into the body simultaneously. So that's the type of feeling that we are referring here to. And it's a practice. You know, for some of us, it just comes like poop online like this, and you get a revelation of it and it's done, like overnight, right? Others, like we really need to practice to learn to hear, like learn to know the difference between the superficial, like the fleshy self, and mental self, and that deeper knowing and feeling. When you get that, like it's so clear for you, and then you'll get to really make every decision. You have a whole new tuning fork inside. Is it really coming from the truth or not, right? And that's all in the free will realm, right? God is not going to force that on anybody. Well, I can't say that. I don't know all the God's ways. Sometimes there are people who just wake up and phew, like I'm online. It's like this like kind of forceful thing that comes true. But like generally, this is our responsibility. This is our radical self-responsibility, is to learn to know the difference between the superficial and the deep. And so for those who, coming back to your question as well, this was like a background to that building, and coming back to that, how to, like, if we're in this superficial levels, how do we get into that deeper space? Honestly, meditation is such a good tool for somebody who's just starting, right? It's a good tool for anybody who is super deep and has been meditating for 50 years. It doesn't matter, because when you're tapping into eternal present, like becoming present is the number one. When you're tapping into eternal present, you become in the intimacy with living God, right? God is in the eternal presence. And so anything that you can do in your life, whether it is letting go or whether it is kicking yourself on the butt to take action, like how can you practice presence more? I just simply stop and become still and know what it means to be so present that you can see the divine in absolutely everything in this moment, because you just see the eternal, and you see beyond this limited the linear mind, right? And nobody can really give that, like here it is, because we can do that, and honestly, so many people and teachers do that all the time. I do that all the time. I give out some of the things that I have received, like the true prosperity frequency. It's always on a table. Very few people grab it, right? It has to be this inner revelation of how can I receive it. And it simply is starting a prayer practice, a meditation practice, and starting to desire, taking time off of the calendar and the schedule of the daily schedule to really be with truth. Because how can truth ever find you if you're all over the place all the time? And truth is always there, but like if God is really busy trying to pull you out of your past, like being so busy all over the past, like how can God ever meet you in your future? So through the present moment. So these are the questions that I just want to offer and leave it there, and encouraging to create a meditation practice if you don't already have one. Yeah.
Thank you. In that, there were a few words, and I'm gonna grab them now, as to manipulation, because we talked about that also beforehand. So for those who have not yet touched that depth in the center, and this is a tool to learn when you're manipulated, that, hey, I'm in the wrong place, keep going deeper, is when you're in that superficial layer, it is so easy to get sidetracked. It is so easy for false light, yes, coming at you, where this is great, that's good, I think I'm doing what I'm supposed to, but just something feels off. And it throws your system off, right? And it almost like throws you into the confusion. And then you're like, what do I do here? So anything that's in the way of that depth, in the way of this full body knowing and clarity, those are all signs of come on in more. Right? And to decipher, because we've lived in a world like that. for our bodies and our minds to experience manipulation left and right. We've lived in it. So to us, it's like second nature. We're desensitized. And now it's really awakening that sensitivity. And it's like, no, this went a little off. Come deeper. Was there a question? Let me see. And there was more like a comment. Oh, as to the manipulation. In this rebirth that we're coming into, it's like we're just like pulling out of it totally, where those manipulations are just really noticeable. So actually, we're all going through this where you can see it. Just pay attention for a second. And if it's manipulation, leave it. You're rebirthing. Keep going. You don't have to go back to it anymore and restructure it. Just come into anew.
Exactly. I love that. I love that. And what you were really pointing out too is like how we don't have to go and try to fix the old systems. It really, like, we can simply just move to the next level, the new higher standard of living. This is another name for resurrected. Like Easter was just last weekend after we recorded this. So I want to bring in that resurrection, that resurrected Christ within us. The higher standard of living is another name for it. That process of resurrection, that's when I say it, the resurrection process. And it really is this like coming to the higher standard of living where we don't have to try to fix the old systems, but simply leave to that higher ground, so to say. And there's been, so the manipulation piece comes from the fallen nature of spiritual things. And we've spoken about this a few times before, so I'm not going to go really deeper. And there would be a whole thing talking about like when and how and why that happened and where people came in and that and all of that. But it is a fallen nature, means it's been separated from God, it's been separated from truth. So it's like these false realities that are very much manipulated because it's manipulating light, right? And not all the manipulation is distorting, because really any kind of expression, like this plant, there's a plant right here, or that plant behind me, is manipulation of light, right? It's like light is being put into a certain form through frequency and atoms and all of that, like coming into being. But distorted manipulation is when it's twisting truth. When like manipulation is it's not God's creation. It's twisting truth. And so where that the piece, that manipulation piece is playing a lot of or it's playing a lot right now, is in a lot of the stories and healing technologies and systems that people have been tapped into, and they're trying to hold on to that old paradigm or the old way of healing, old way of getting attuned, old way of getting certified and being practitioner on this one and that one, old way of church, old way of meditating, like whatever, like all of these like ways that have been here. And there's actually a lot of and a lot of it is beneficial because it's been part of our involution or evolution, right? So it's been helping us to go to the next level. But a lot of that has, there's like a manipulation that has been weaved into it. Like say, astrology is a great example. There's a lot of information that is beyond our current astrology awareness. It's totally from the higher ground. None of that it's outdated working. And I know people hate to hear this because people love astrology, so I don't often times actually speak about this. And obviously there's like timeless pieces everywhere. Like we can find God in everywhere if we have a lens of truth, right? But so many people are say identifying with astrology with a lens of manipulation, which means that we start identifying with the system. And what happens is that the system that is supposed to be healing and the system that is supposed to be giving some clarity to our system or our being and whatever is happening in our lives actually becomes manipulative. Like it starts to, like, in a distorted way. So it's holding you stagnant in that system. It's preventing you to go to the next level, the higher standard. And people are obsessed holding on to spiritual stories and healing stories. And it's a part of the human nature, and I've been there myself many times. And this is what happens with the rebirth. When there's a true rebirth that happens, we need to let go of all those stories and all these things that seemingly identify our process, because none of that matters anymore. And we go into a lot higher eternal law system. There's an entire different constellations and different eternal law system available in that space. And we're just starting to really understand what that means. And I've seen this so many times when people who's been so stuck with certain, say, astrology story of this is the next 3 months will be really difficult for me because of this and this and this and this and this, reading the stars. And I'm simply asking, do you want to be free from it? And they're like, yes. Well, then let go of that. Let go of that wholeheartedly. Let go of that story. You're not bound by those laws. You're not bound by those constellations. You're from the higher ground. You're from the higher space. Do you know what is on the table right now? And then those few individuals who's really done that, they really let go of that. They've immediately gotten out of that struggle because they came face to face with truth that was really lifting them out of that. And this is what true salvation means. Right, Christ as a savior, like this is what this true salvation is, that we are pulled out of that limited, those filters that we have. And it's no different from if somebody has this manipulative filter on the face and you're trying to read some spiritual texts like Bhagavad Gita or Tao Te Ching or Bible, right? All of these are incredibly valuable pieces of books that has timeless information and teaching there. Right? Timeless teaching. If we are reading any of those books with the manipulating filter, we are going to be perceiving manipulation. And that's where, again, like religious or spiritual trauma comes into picture, where we start actually resisting. Versus when somebody is reading with the lens of truth, they're gonna getting so many revelations from one verse. They're gonna be connecting all those, like, oh, all these dots are coming in, and we get this deep insight and revelation and wisdom out of this text that is like some people label as really a bad text or whatever it is, like manipulative text. But it's simply because these people are walking in the dimension of manipulation. Isn't it crazy? People are walking in the dimension of manipulation. They are vulnerable. They are walking around being connected to the superficial mind and the feeling realms, instead of walking in the spirit that is already in the truth, and truth never manipulates you. Truth doesn't even know how to manipulate you, like in a distorted sense. Truth, sometimes I'm like thinking about, oh, one more thing I want to say here. Last night, God visited me, and I was up like 2 hours at night in the middle of the night receiving information for the next Spirit Mission program that also Melinda is part of. So I'm excited to share more about it. But this was the funny thing, is like I was in this state receiving information, and I was like, oh, I wish that God would manipulate us to come home the truth. Like, think about love. If unconditional love would be manipulating you, like, hey, if you subscribe next 2 hours to this unconditional love, like, you also get this eternal prosperity and peace with it. You can only do this for next 2 hours, right? Like, talking about this like marketing manipulation that is all over social media and all over online offerings. That would be so great. It would be so great to be manipulated by unconditional love. Like, okay, trick me into you, trick me to understand you. That would be so much easier, right? It's so funny, but like, God doesn't do that. Love doesn't do that. That's where our free will comes into picture. It's 100% responsibility for us to find unconditional love, for us to find eternal prosperity, for us to find peace and become obedient. Again, another strong word that many people have like, oh, this is a bad word, but become obedient for God's will. What really is, like, if you want to get truth, you gotta be aligned with the truth. That's what it is, right? It's super straightforward for me. But again, if people walk into the manipulation dimension, that's what they're gonna receive. Yeah.
Beautiful. That was awesome. And so to hold it together into a few words, really the grounds that we're walking on is where we're not holding on to anything, because the truth is given every present moment, right there and then. And there, then the question comes in, and I say, I just wrote down the texture of the truth, how it feels in your personal free will, right? Because truth will have a certain feel, a resonance, and it will feel very different than any kind of manipulation. So this is, even somebody who's never had any practice before, even if you just ask the question, what is the feeling? What does that feel like? To feel in my body the truth, to have that touch my free will. So I take that as my guidance, right? We can open to that. We can simply just here, I'm ready. Let me feel what it's like. Guide my every step, because I want out of this manipulation. And probably within minutes, you will start to see what's manipulative, because the resonance of that truth will just like total clear, and anything that's not, you're like, oh, that's off, that's off, that's off too. Oh my gosh, and that too. I used to believe in that system. I used to think that he or she was for this, and you'll see where we still can improve on these, and then you can be that helping hand, because you can sense. Now, I'm not suggesting that somebody who's never tried anything, all that they'll know it immediately, but that's not off the table. That we are stepping into that ground where that is possible, and then it's just holding that in your body. And again, it comes in the embodiment, such an important part. You can't leave it. We are here in body. You can't dismiss the body. So connecting with your body in your practices.
Mm-hmm.
That feeling of truth, of God's will in it, so you can then offer your personal free will into that.
Exactly. I really want to comment on that, because that's a really good deepening there, and how sneaky that manipulation is, it just in the society, like even marketing techniques and what we are being taught of how to put ourselves out into the world. A lot of that is based on manipulation, at least in US. In Finland, no, Finland is like honest based culture. It's like there's, if you make a deal, it's an honest deal. There's nobody trying to like trick you into something that, we both come from Europe. Melinda comes from Hungary originally, and I'm from Finland. So you would also probably know that it's crazy here in US how much there's manipulation. You can't even get one phone call without somebody trying to manipulate you into something. And I was so innocent when I came here. I literally, every time somebody calls me, I have to ask to stop and ask my husband, is this for real? Am I supposed to have this kind of warranty, or am I this and this and that? Like, is this a thing to do? And then he's been like telling me like, no, you need to grow some thick skin here in the US around the manipulation. But that's like, we need to be really careful on that, because something that we've learned from, even as like a good practice or with a good intention, there's this underlying like kind of trying to trick people to like your posts, or getting as many followers as possible, or maximizing the views on the videos and all of that. Like, we really need to check in of what frequency we do that from. So now it's not about not doing any marketing, right? Marketing is good. Expression is good. It's good to put the word out there, the good word out there. But what is the frequency of where it's coming from, and where do you walk in the spirit when you do that, right? Is it aligned with God's will? And so that's really, really important. And I really invite everybody to search your heart, especially those who are working on these dimensions, that are working with these fields of putting your programs and stuff out there. Really search your heart. Search your heart if you are genuine with that, or if there is some kind of like a sneaky little habit that you just adopted from somebody successful and you thought it was good thing to do, right? And there was another thing that you also shared. Oh yeah, you spoke about the feeling of how that feels when we are aligned with the truth. Coming even deeper back to that, like sometimes being in alignment with God's will does not feel good. So we need to get out of this idea of it feeling good. And I know I mentioned about this, like following the bliss only. I don't do anything unless it's like my bliss, right? So this is a deeper aspect of that. Like sometimes it feels the most terrifying thing that you can imagine. Sometimes it feels the saddest thing that you've ever heard, right? It's not always blissful. Truth is not always blissful. And we really need to understand that. And again, this is moving from the superficial feeling into the spirit feeling, spirit sensing. That's why I think sensing may be better, perceiving may be a better word for it. Spirit perceiving, spirit sensing. That sometimes following God's will, it feels it's difficult in the moment, but something in you would know, remember eternal promises, remember eternal laws, that you're operating on a higher dimension. So the challenge is that you're the walls that you're hitting here, it's actually it's not going to limit you, because there's already a solution, because you walk over here. So what happens when you hit in, you can now walk spirit and walk over it, because this is what God wills do. God never sends you anywhere where you're not provided for. This is a teaching that Prophet Love is honing in all the time, and I really got it. I really understood it. Like when I'm following that, I'm never going to be lacking a single thing, because I'm always provided for, not only physically, but every dimension, every freaking dimension of the soul and spirit. Because there's a lot there's a whole wild, wild west going on in the spirit as well, if we go into the battlefield. So it's really important to know how to navigate those spaces and continue to be in the simplicity of truth, because it really is extremely simple in that space.
And if we can put a little remembrance mark here, that when people feel like they're hitting a wall, to remember there is a solution. You can just take that breath and imagine yourself going over the wall, because you will see that the next step is provided for.
Yes. I love that you brought imagination. Imagination is so important. It really is. It's a God-given gift to humans.
Because
Because
ultimately, I mean, yes, it is, yes, God-given gift. And you simply just like, okay, let me see. It's given to you in pictures. Something there I wanted to comment on. I forgot. Let me see. Yeah, truth doesn't always feel good, but there's the knowing, right? That's
exactly.
what you're looking for. That really aligned connection of knowing, like I know it in my heart.
There's a word for that. I don't know the origin of this word, and I'm gonna looking it up, but it's gnosis. My husband shared this word with me. Gnosis. There's actually a word to describe that inner knowing. Inner knowing is gnosis, which is like when you really know the truth in your heart, when you perceive God's voice in your heart.
It did come to me what I was going to comment on. It's a little bit backtracking, that when I came to this country, in the first few months, what I was taught is that there's a law and there's going to be another law opposing it. You need to know how to play it if you want to live in this country. And I remember just staring, and this was an attorney who was like, really? That's how you guys live here? And I've seen it so many times. So all of you out there who grew up here and only is here, just, I don't know, maybe rent a foreign movie just to see how people relate to each other in other countries. There's very much a different set of platform that they walk on when it comes to, even like you said, if you say something, then that's how it is. Your word can be taken. Your word is your currency. The trust that you give. And actually, I'm excited that I see that being coming into our field more and more. And that's one of the hugest shifts that are going on here right now, is really that old ways, they call the how great America used to be. Yes, great. But now it's let's make the people of it, and not just of this land, but all of the lands. Start walking on that ground where you can give very easily your word, and it can be taken as truth, and we all walk there.
Yes. This opens up this door. I love what you shared about the word is the currency. Ah, I really want to just like ding, highlight that over there. And that opens a deeper conversation that we're not going to go into right back now, but I'm making mental note to come back to it, of how continents and countries, of like, say, coming from, well, giving an example, coming from Finland, systems are really clean there and really simple. If you need help, you get help really fast, and it's just like really clear system of how everything, healthcare and education and everything works. And it's because of the gene population of Finnish people is very narrow, so to say. I think that's a right way to say it, or small, meaning that our DNA is very much and very particular kind of harmony with each other, because we haven't really dispersed into very many different cultures. But it's kind of like everybody is kind of related to each other kind of thing, but not distorted way, but you know what I mean. So going back in the family line, it's not super diverse, right? So the frequencies that exist in that kind of culture are very simple as well. They are more grounded. People actually agree more. Of course, there's, voting and all of that, and different parties who disagree and all that's happening everywhere. But generally, people agree more on certain things, and it's easier to make huge decisions. Like versus here in this continent of US, or country of US, there's like all these people who came from all over the world, right? From all different cultures, and it's like this matching of like colliding, or like conflict of so many different frequency systems, DNA systems, social systems, that like these unspoken spiritual systems, and all of it is just like crashing into this one huge pool. So of course this is the country of manipulation and confusion. Like really, of course this is a country also of potential and new opportunities and so many good things. So I'm not passing USA down from that sense, but the manipulation piece is real, and confusion. So many people are confused here. There's confusion in the government. We can't trust each other. We can constantly, this like weird war going on, and so that's really happening on a country level. And this would be a conversation for another time, so I'm not going to go into it deeper. Because it's all also like, it's not a coincidence. There is medicine in different cultures clashing together like this. So this is not a coincidence. This is not a mistake that America is what it is today. But we're not going to go into that today.
Yes. What I see when there's too many things, it's the very discomfort or pain or dysregulation that then gives birth to seeing it clearly. So yes,
Right.
it holds that gift.
Right. Exactly.
I
Yes.
don't know, it kind of feels like this is a good point to stop.
I agree. I felt it too. Yes.
Okay.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you, Melinda, so much. And thank you for everybody who listened today.